Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi, and welcome to another Let's Talk Divorce conversation. And during this segment of the show, ladies and gentlemen, I have Christian divorce attorney Jamie Manning. Now, Jamie is the owner of the Manning Law Company, and she's calling in all the way from Columbus, Ohio. Now, Jamie, an authority in the area of family law, will be talking to you today about why divorce is forgivable. Now then, that sounds like a really interesting topic. So, if you are one of the increasing numbers of Christian divorcing couples in the Columbus, Ohio area, you might want to down tools, grab a pen and paper so you can take some notes while you listen in to what Jamie has to share with us today. So, with that said, let's not keep her waiting any longer. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thank you very much for having me, Stuart. I'm very excited to be here to share this information with you.
And we are very excited to have you on the show. Also, we know how busy you are over there in sunny Ohio. So with that said then, Jamie, let's just jump straight in with our first question for today. If you could, can you just briefly share what kinds of people you serve and the various types of situations they find themselves in when they come to you for your help?
Excellent. Well, I am a Christian divorce attorney, but often I say Christian defines me as much as anyone else. Many of my clients who come to me find themselves in a position where they're needing a divorce, but they don't necessarily want one. Often my clients are active members of a church, maybe clergy, children of clergy, just people who have really strong religious beliefs and who have often been taught that divorce is wrong. But in addition to serving people who are in need of a divorce, we also help fathers who are seeking custody of their children, as well as mothers who are seeking to sometimes modify parenting orders and things of that sort. So in addition to helping families who need divorces, we also often help unmarried parents because in Ohio, an unmarried parent is treated a little differently than a married parent. So we help those people too.
Okay, excellent. It's good to know, get an idea, a 30,000-foot view of who you can help. However, today we are speaking to Christian divorcing couples. Now, keeping in mind that anything you do share with us today, Jamie, is not legal advice or legal assistance. It's purely information. I am pretty sure that in all the time you've been out there helping Christian divorcing couples, that you come across many misconceptions. People come to you with preconceived notions. They've read something on the internet, they've heard something from a friend, and they believe that to be true. However, as you and I both know, you have to spend some time dispelling those myths, those untruths. Now, of all the misconceptions that you come across on a regular basis then, Jamie, can you just share with us the most common misconception that you hear on a regular basis?
Awesome. One of the main reasons I became a Christian divorce attorney is to dispel the common misconception that God hates divorce. There is a verse in Malachi in the Bible that people often toss around that says God hates divorce. And in reality, the purpose of the Manning Law Company is to let people know that that is not true. Divorce is forgivable. God hates the negative things and the painful things that lead to divorce. That verse in particular, if you look at it in context, was speaking about husbands who were mistreating their wives. They were hurting them and stepping out of the marriage and being with foreign women. It really is the pain that leads to divorce that is the problem. That is what God is upset about. God loves people. He loves all people. He's not one to hate. So as a result, I often run into clients who have remained in bad or dead marriages for many, many years for fear that if they are to get a divorce, they will be cut off from God. One of my favorite stories to share is a woman who I went to church with. And while normally I don't do cases on a pro bono manner, this woman, she and I were pretty close. She had adult children. She had been estranged from her husband for over 10 years. She didn't even really know where he was. Yet she had remained in this marriage because she had been taught that God hates divorce and that she cannot divorce. After some time and some things had changed in her life, hopefully I believe some of it had to do with meeting me and hearing part of the message, she did feel like she was released to get a divorce. And so we filed the necessary paperwork. She was released from that marriage. And her testimony is that just months after the divorce was final, she fell in love. She met a man who really treated her the way she deserved to be treated. She was so happy. And all the time while she had remained in that sham of a marriage, she wasn't open to meeting someone who could really love her. And so she found that divorce is more than forgivable. In her situation, divorce is what God needed her to do so that she could experience true love.
That's a really great insight and a great story to share with us. I was just thinking while you was sharing that story, if there's somebody who is in a unhappy marriage, then surely, and I'm saying this from the layman's perspective because I'm certainly not the expert on this topic, but surely the unhappier you are, the further you are away from God. And the happier you are, the closer you are to God, the more you are able to carry out His work. Am I on the right track there?
I would say you are on some level.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to clear up that just because your marriage is going through a rough patch doesn't mean that you should throw it in. I liken a God-honoring marriage to a diamond, and sometimes the diamond is a diamond in the rough.
Right.
You know, it is still a true God-honoring marriage. It just needs a little shining up, a little cleaning up, as opposed to some marriages, which are really a cubic zirconia. It's not truly an authentic God-honoring marriage.
Right.
And so the truth is, if you're in one of these fake marriages, which happens to a lot of people, they look very similar, right, to the naked eye.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, what they're doing, as you're suggesting, Stewart, is they are kind of destroying you on the inside instead of building you up, you know, instead of you and your spouse becoming one so that you can do kingdom purposes together. It's really distracting you from the work of God. So,
Gotcha.
Yes, on that note, you are true.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that then, Jamie. So just as a reminder, today's topic is divorce is forgivable. Now, with that in mind then, Jamie, and for those divorcing couples out there who are listening in right now and they're wanting to know more, again, like the misconceptions, I'm sure there are many pitfalls that you come across on a regular basis. However, what's the most unknown common pitfall that you'd like to share with our listeners, the kinds of pitfall that they need to avoid regardless of their situation?
Oh, wow. That's really a hard one.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to narrow it down to one major pitfall. And that is, you don't know how you're going to feel when you get divorced until you get divorced. Mm-hmm. Some people are under the impression that the divorce itself is going to solve all of their problems. You know, I've been in this unhappy marriage. He's been speaking to me poorly. You know, he's not really supporting me, and all of these other bad things which happen with bad marriages. And they're under the impression that when they get the divorce, everything's going to be better and they're just going to be happy. But the reality is you're often trading one set of problems for another set of problems. I had a close friend who was in a bad marriage. It was definitely a sham of a marriage. I believe that God certainly released her from that marriage, no question about it, because her life really has begun to really blossom and get much better since the marriage itself has ended. Nonetheless, she moved faster than I suggested. I often suggest that people spend at least 6 months apart before moving into the divorce process. You need to give yourself a little time to mourn. A divorce is really a death of a marriage. There is a mourning period involved. She moved faster than I would have suggested. The divorce went relatively smoothly, almost like a dissolution, in that the husband didn't fight her. They were, easily agreed on everything. But then she started speaking to me about how when she came home from work, she just wanted to lay in the dark, and how she was so tired and her head hurt, and described a number of just negative feelings that she wasn't expecting. I said, you're depressed. You're mourning the death of your marriage. You thought that by moving quickly, you were all of a sudden going to feel better, and that you were somehow going to avoid all of this pain just because it was a bad marriage. And that's not true. And so I just like for everyone to understand that at some point, there is going to be some pain. If you're lucky, you will have gone through a lot of the mourning process before you file the papers. And as a result, there is the possibility that by the time the divorce is finished, you really are free. But there will be a time of pain. And I think everybody isn't aware of that, and I think you should be.
Now, let me ask you this then, Jamie. When you think about all of those divorcing couples who you've helped in the past, and when you think about the ones that are going to come to you for your assistance in the future, what question would you wish they would have asked you?
I wish that clients would ask me how they can know for sure that it's time for them to get a divorce. It's the same kind of pitfall my friend fell into where she moved too fast. I happened to, I hate to call it there's a deal where in a Christian marriage, there are really 5 areas of oneness. There are 5 different areas that you have to separate in order to become divorced. Initially, when you marry, your hearts become one. You're spiritually one. The divorce itself is a result of the hardness of the hearts of one of you, which leads to a separation in that area. But then there's also other areas. Physically, the couple became one, meaning they joined households. So now both of you are living in one place. All of the furniture and the belongings in the house belong to both of you. And to get a divorce, you need to separate that oneness. So have you contemplated moving out? Who's going to live where? You also become financially one. We have joint bank accounts, joint cell phone bills, joint car insurance. Have you really separated those things out, right? So that you're no longer one in those areas. Emotionally, you are one. That has to do with your children, your family, your church support system, and just considering the fact that this divorce is going to affect all of those people and not just you and your spouse. Once you've kind of considered each of those areas, then it's really time to move forward to a legal divorce, which is where you separate yourselves legally. The issue that most people fall into when they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on a divorce is because they didn't consider some of those issues ahead of time. And as a result, they're fighting over these things during the course of the divorce, where if they'd just taken the time to handle some of these things before moving to the legal option, they will save themselves lots of money and considerable amounts of stress.
This is such an interesting conversation, Jamie. I'm so glad that you've come on the show to offer this very unique perspective. I mean, during this series, I've spoken with, I think, about 58 divorce professionals and counting, but you're the very first that's come on the show and drawn a line in the sand and said, hey, I'm a Christian divorce attorney. And I find that very, very interesting. And if I could just share with you for a moment, Jamie, the reason why we're doing this series called Let's Talk Divorce, 'cause it's something that's very close and dear to my heart. And it's a question that I'd like to put to you also. Now, I'm a child of divorce myself. My parents got divorced back in the 70s. I was a young man, 11, 12 years old, or a young child, should I say. And it was a very volatile divorce. There was lots of violence. There was lots of blood. And the kinds of resources that are available today with collaborative divorce, mediators, people like yourself, Christian divorce, those kind of resources were not available in those days. And unfortunately for my younger brother and I, we got caught in the middle of the divorce. So my mother was constantly saying things like, you need to go to your father, and your father's this, your father's that, and vice versa. My father's saying your mother's this, and we were caught in the middle of all of this volatile situation, which we had no control over. Now, I experienced that personally myself, and I know it took me many years, at least 20 years to deal with the fallout of that. It had a huge effect on me as a young man and my confidence. Fortunately, I came out on the good side. I didn't, end up doing drugs or crime, as I know many children of divorce did back in those days. And that's the reason why I started this series, is to bring professionals like yourself onto this show, obviously to give yourself a voice and to share your expertise, to share your experience. But fundamentally, my goal is that when the listeners tune in to people like yourself who are sharing such great information, is that if they have children, that they may, in the hope, if it's only one person or one couple that says, hey, we need to change our perception here. We need to change the way how we're communicating with each other and put the children first, regardless of how we feel. You cheated on me, I cheated on you, whatever the case may be, no matter how we feel, how much rights we have to be angry, to be disappointed, to not involve the children, to keep the children away from that. So with that said then, Jamie, what can you share with the listeners out there if they do find themselves in that unfortunate position of going through a divorce process and they have children, but they're terribly upset and they just don't see any way forward other than to fight with each other? What kind of insights would you like to share with those couples on behalf of the children out there who do not have a voice?
Oh, thank you so much. It's important, Stewart. Just thank you really for sharing that story, because it is such a real thing that is still continuing today. And what I like to advise the parents is that what's best for the child is not always what's most convenient for the parent. I like for the parents to remember a couple of things, which is, one, you would not go up to a stranger on the street and talk poorly about their mother. Why would you do that to your own child? You wouldn't do that to a rank stranger. You might end up in a street fight. Why would you do that to a child? Just to consider that. And also, touching on something you said, you have to love the child more than you are angry with the other parent, more than you want revenge on the other parent. You have to love the child more. Now, I have a couple of rules that I suggest to people. One is this. I learned it in law school. It was actually from a criminal attorney. And what he says is, if you're in the courtroom and somebody has to go to jail, let it be the client, not you. You and the attorney maintain your integrity, right? And when it comes to divorcing parents, I say if one parent has to be the jerk, let it be the other parent. It doesn't have to be you. Just because that parent is speaking poorly about you to the child doesn't mean you have to stoop to that level. The child will eventually understand where that person is coming from. even if that parent is, in fact, a jerk, eventually the child will figure it out for themselves. You don't need to lead them down that road of thinking. I had a client once who was getting a divorce, and they had 2 children together. And she, to me, to this day, is the model parent. The dad kept the girls on the Fridays. Normally, the non-custodial parent has visitation 2 nights on the weekend, but he was only able to handle 1 night over the weekend. Usually be Friday night. And it never failed that the girls would call home to mom and say, "We're hungry, and so was dad." And mom could have responded with, "What? He only has you 1 night, right? Every couple of weeks. Why can't he plan better? What kind of a bad parent is he? You know what? I'm not letting you go over there anymore." But she didn't. What she did is she started packing her daughter some food when they were going to go to their dad's house. Because in the reality, the person who was going to look like the jerk was not the dad who didn't have the food. It was the mom who would have said all the bad things about the dad, and then who would have tried to interrupt the relationship, because even though he was a decent dad, he wasn't a perfect dad. Often, when I share that story in front of a group of parents, because I do offer co-parenting workshops, you can kind of hear the moms in the room go, "Oh, he didn't have food, And I have to remind them, but he did get the girls on Friday. See, that's the part you forget. We have to look at the positive things about that other parent and the parenting relationship with the child. And sometimes I know it's hard to do, but we have to for the sake of our children. In my own life growing up, I am also a child of divorce, and it was kind of ugly between my parents at the beginning, but by the grace of God, things really smoothed out, and over time, they were probably the most ideal co-parents I've ever seen. My dad's definitely got some flaws about himself. My grandmother tells the story when she would pick me up from my dad's house, and I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. She says I would be stinky, but I'd be happy, It would be pretty clear that I hadn't been bathed all weekend, and she would ask me what I ate, and I'd say cheese and hot peppers, and and just as happy as a clam that I had spent that time with my dad,
Right.
And my grandmother says what was most important to her was how happy I was.
Exactly.
Certainly, she could have acted like, "We can't let you go over there, right? This man isn't feeding you. He isn't bathing you. Is he even watching you? What is going on in that house? We do not understand. I do not feel safe sending you over there." But that's not how they behaved. She saw how happy I was having spent that time with my father. And that was the thing that controlled the situation. And I would dare say that I turned out pretty well. And I believe my close relationship that I had with my father, who I did see on the weekends, and in the summertime, he wasn't a full-time dad like, my mom's full-time. But I believe my relationship with him is one of the main reasons that I ended up becoming an attorney and having a successful life instead of becoming a pregnant teenager like many of my friends who went to the same inner city public high school. And so parents, you have to just, the parents have to just think about the long run, and not how you feel right now.
Yeah, and even though they may on paper be in the right, if in the unfortunate case the procedure does go to court, it's the parent who looks like the jerk who's most likely to get the ruling against them. That's what the courts are going to look at, because they don't really care about, what's fair.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, Anyway, I could talk with you for hours on this topic, but unfortunately we do not have so much time, Jamie. So let's just push on to our next question. Before I do that, how many years have you been practicing family law?
Oh, I have been licensed for 15 years.
Okay, so would it be safe to say that within those 15 years you've helped hundreds of people, possibly thousands?
Yeah, at least hundreds, right.
Exactly. So Think about this then, Jamie. I want you to imagine for a moment that it's a Monday morning or any morning of the week, and your alarm clock goes off, 5 o'clock, 6, 7, whatever the time is in your part of the world. And you have a full day's work ahead of you, helping those Christian divorcing couples out there, who find themselves in that unfortunate situation. How does Jamie Manning feel on a morning like that? Are you still motivated?
I am exceptionally motivated because the reality is the more people I help, the better I feel. The more that I know that I am doing the work of the kingdom. It is important that the Manning Law Company grows and that we spread this message to as many people as possible, because the only way for us to help families, protect children, and really protect the sanctity of marriage is to make sure that we're out there helping families differentiate between a real marriage and a fake marriage, and helping parents understand that you can co-parent a child even though you don't want to be in a relationship together.
Fantastic. So in terms of your background then, Jamie, I was talking about your formal background. Can you just share a few insights into your education and your experience as it relates to the topic of family law / Christian divorce?
Oh, excellent. My undergraduate degree is from the University of Rochester, and it's actually in English literature. But many of my experiences at Rochester, especially working with the Mount Hope Family Center, helped me to see how just delicate children are and how much they can be affected by their environment. I then moved on to law school at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, where I worked in the family law clinic as well as I clerked at Legal Aid, helping women obtain civil protection orders and divorces from their abusers. And that was really important work. I finished that work up and moved to AmeriCorps, where I was a volunteer attorney in southeastern Ohio, where I also continued my work with helping victims of abuse obtain protection orders. As well, I was instrumental in establishing a supervised child visitation center. And this is awesome because it helps parents who even have a violent relationship still be able to exchange the child in a safe way, so that a child is still able to see both parents, even when one parent has maybe been convicted of a crime against the other parent, or in the unfortunate situation when the visiting parent is homeless and they don't have anywhere to visit with the child. The Supervised Visitation Center ensured that everyone could still keep their relationship with the child. And all of that led me to kind of my current place now as a Christian divorce attorney.
So you followed your true north, so to speak, right?
Yes.
And I get a sense of that with this raw passion of yours that comes over while you're speaking. One can definitely tell that this is a true passion and a true love of yours. So really, almost like feel privileged to be able to speak with you and be able to listen to some of your insights today.
Thank you.
So finally then, Jamie, when you think about the divorcing couples who come to you for your help, what final thoughts would you like to share with them before we move on to our last question for today?
Gotcha. The most important thought I'd like to leave with you is that in addition to the fact that divorce is forgivable, you can maintain your integrity throughout the process. And that doesn't mean that you're going to roll over and be a doormat and just take whatever is thrown at you. But it does mean that you will fight for the things that are worth fighting for, and that you'll back down on the things that aren't worth fighting for. So just because you're a Christian going through a divorce doesn't mean, you have to just lay down. You do still have a right and an opportunity to protect what's important to you.
So if there is somebody out there, Jamie, that, wants to maintain their integrity throughout the divorce process, how can they get in touch with you? Where would they find you, Jamie?
Awesome. You can find me on the web at www.christiandivorce.us. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter as OH Divorce Answer. I'm also on LinkedIn as Jamie Manning. And if you'd like to call the office, you can reach us at 614-597-1330.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Jamie. So, whether you are out there and you're driving in your car, I hope you're not sat in heavy traffic, as that certainly is no fun. Maybe you're at work and you're listening in on your personal headset, or maybe you're out in the gym. Who knows? Whatever the case may be, that is all we have time for today. So once more, that was Christian divorce attorney Jamie Manning. Thank you so much for sharing so generously with us today, Jamie. You have certainly, without a doubt, hands down 100% have demonstrated that you are a true educator and advocate for your client's success. So thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. And I'd also additionally like to say a big thank you to you, the listener, for joining us on this very insightful and informative discussion with one of the, maybe the only, Christian divorce attorney in the Columbus, Ohio area. Again, her name was Jamie Manning. Don't forget her name. Make sure you check her out. Give her a call. Send her that email. Visit her on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I'm sure you're going to be in a great place to get started. So that's it, folks. My name is Stewart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly with some more leading divorce professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So, until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.